Good afternoon. This is Jason from Better Capital Club. Today we're back with Abe Sharma, a special broker here in the Bay Area. Abe, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be on your platform, Jason.
Absolutely. And just for all the return viewers, can you please remind us what you do? Quick intro, please.
Thanks, Jason. Yes, I'm a real estate professional and I specialize in helping people find investment properties, mostly multifamily properties that are producing hopefully over return of over 10% for your capital. And I really focus on making sustainable partnerships with brokers, investors, lenders, insurance agents. And that's really it. That's what I do.
Fantastic. So glad to have you back, Abe. So previously, when we last talked, you mentioned that it took you 11 offers until you made your very first investment into the single family market in 2009. Back then, it was during the great real estate recession. Everything was different, and you chose a market and you really spent a lot of effort into making your first deal. And I would love to learn more about that.
For sure. Thank you so much. And, I think maybe I always like to talk about the macros. And I think it's good to, like you mentioned, Jason, it was around recession time. So what that means is the credit was harder to come by. So the banks were quite strict in lending. And that was interesting. But I still found there to be a lot of competition. And because it was still my first time ever buying a home, it was a learning process. And I still remember the first agent who Todd. So Todd, he would what was great about when there's some positives, which is like he would just drive me around Sacramento to all different parts. We would go to parts where I would be like, "Are you sure we're not going to get shot here?" Or some really nice parts where I would be like, "Well, I don't think I can afford this." And so I think he was really patient with me, which I think really was helpful. And when we did find the right deals, I would offer, and it's possible that I was, mm, you know, sometimes not offering enough or didn't know what the right price was. And over time, I honed my own process. And as I got comfortable with it, and eventually learned, if we go back to the macro, that lending was really difficult at that time, and cash offers were king. So in this case, actually, the first deal that I did, I borrowed from my dad to make a cash offer on this deal, and that ended up being the 11th offer for the 11th property that I visited, and that ended up being successful.
Wow. I think just the financing portion of making a deal work is so difficult. We've seen this again in the most recent, mortgage rate crisis that even though the prices might be crashing, you might have the down payment, but if you don't have the right financing, it's so hard to put a deal together. I mean, I think it's really cool that you were able to get comfortable with friends and family and to really build from that. And just out of curiosity, when you put in your all cash offer, what did you put in an offer under the listing price? Were you aggressive? What was going through your mind there? Did you put any contingencies?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can share a quick slide about it. Essentially, in this case, the offer was, it was somebody was doing a flip, and what they were ended up so they bought the property for $40,000, and I ended up buying the property. It was listed for 81,000, and I offered list price $81,000. And at that time, actually, again, back to the
Fantastic.
macro conditions, there weren't a lot of people. It was crunchy. It was like crunchy as in people were scared.
Yeah.
So there was actually an Obama credit of $10,000 as well. And so I ended up, I paid 81,000, but then also received $10,000 back from the government with interest.
Wow.
Um, and so, which ended up, so essentially, yeah, the closing was about $71,000. And then I just put a picture of the property. If you're looking, watching a video, you can see it there as well.
I'll make sure to include it in the show notes. That's amazing. You know, the ROI is humongous. But I think I would like to kind of go back into your mindset during that time because no one knew in 2009 when the bottom was going to be in. And I got to ask, you know, you just saw this property probably go from 150,000 to 80,000. Did you fear that it was going to crash even lower? You know, did you ever have, you know, any considerations on just waiting a bit longer, waiting and waiting and maybe never making the move? Like what was going through your mind?
I love that question. I think for me, I would probably acknowledge what I didn't know at the time, right? Like I probably, much later on, I ended up going to business school and learning a lot more about economy and those types of things. But I think what I knew at the time was literally what you just said was like, oh, this property had traded hands before for $169,000. Someone has now bought it for 40,000 and they're trying to sell it for 80. Um, what I liked about it was also the location. So, it's still 10 minutes from downtown Sacramento. You could double pane windows everywhere. They'd redone some of the work. And I think um, back to the basics, maybe that was the lesson, which is good location, didn't need a lot of improvements for me, and I could actually live there as well. Could be a primary home, which could be beneficial as well. And I think these types of lessons apply even when even now, like you're saying, even it's sort of similar with the credit interest rates being high. Because my think is, I think if you stay with sort of the basic principles, there's a deal every week. You just have to find it. And I think, yeah. So I mean, did I know that was the bottom? No. Did it go even below that? No. Um, but I think there's that just the location of it and understanding that I didn't need to push too much sweat equity in there because someone else had done the harder work for me.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. You know, for all the Better Capital Club members, I want to kind of just quickly summarize what Abe said. So we want to buy in a location that is good with a good tenant base. We want to buy a deal that is low risk, that doesn't need risky repairs. We want to think about the long term and, you know, and not necessarily, you know, overanalyze. I think sometimes it's just so hard for people to make investment choices, especially in environments like these. But you know, as Abe said, tremendous ROI. He knew that he could hold it. He knew that it was a low risk deal, and everything really, really worked out. Abe, thank you so much for sharing your very first deal. Fantastic journey, our audience would definitely love to hear more about how you know you grew your portfolio over the years to what they are now in a later video. Uh, where can people find you?
Thanks again, Jason. Yeah, happy to connect and be helpful to your audience. The best way to find me is my cell phone, which is 978-273-3952. And my email is asharma8080 at gmail.com.